on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
What's the one thing everybody loves about kids' books? They're fun to read out loud. Have you ever read a book and you go, that sentence just doesn't sound right? Mm-hmm. It's because they thought with their fingers, not with their mind. Stories are meant to be read aloud.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Yes, it is the Self-Publishing Show. My name is James Blatch.
My name is Mark Dawson, not Michael Caine.
No, you always forgot your name.
I did.
You did say Mark J. Dawson sometimes. Mark
That's
Dawson
me.
other times. John,
Yeah.
Is it John?
Jonathan.
Jeremy? Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Jonty Dawson. Jonty Dawson could be your PI. No, because you're
You're
doing
really good.
You're doing. What's your procedural? Who's your hero of your police
It's
procedural?
called Atticus Priest.
Atticus. Wow. Obviously a nod to Atticus Finch, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
What author wouldn't be without a nod to Atticus Finch at some point in their writing career?
Yeah, my dog is called Scout. So there's another nod.
Yes, excellent. Well, we can talk about you some other time. We talk about you a lot, and we are going to talk about you. And we're going to talk
I like
about
talking about me, though.
Yeah, 2019 coming up. Once you have in real life got back from Bali, even though this episode goes out at that point, we are batching as we sometimes do over Christmas.
Blatching.
Batching.
Blatching.
We've got some great episodes in the can, and this is one we picked up actually in the autumn in person in Florida, I believe. This was a Nink interview with Danielle Norman. This is Dictation. I know you've got your own experience of dictation from 2018. So let's hold that in abeyance, Mark. Let's hear from Danielle, and then I'm going to talk to you a bit about your experience. So let's hear from Danielle about the art of dictation for authors.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
We are here. Danielle.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about you before we talk about
Oh, I'm boring.
the dictation. You're not boring. We've had a little chat beforehand, and there's nothing boring about
Okay.
you.
Let's see. I'm new to romance writing. Almost a year.
A year. Were you writing before?
I was. Children's books.
Okay.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harper, Random House, Simon & Schuster.
And we're going to talk about dictation, because
Yes.
that's something you've really got to grips with. But you've got an interesting background, and most excitingly of all, and if people are watching this on YouTube, take your glasses off and look into that camera. Who did Danielle play? Who was she for the Walt Disney Company? And the answer, of course, is Snow White. Beautiful Snow White. You were Snow White at Disneyland.
Yeah.
or
Disney World. Let's
Disney
get
World,
it straight. Come
Yes,
on. One's
yeah.
California, one's Florida. Yeah.
And so you had the little girls hanging off your
I
hands.
did. I loved it. It was wonderful.
I bet. I mean, you can't not be happy doing that job.
Oh my gosh. It was just fun going to work every day. But of course, back then, I didn't have to wear a wig, because my hair was black back then. Because, come on, I was
Yeah.
30 years younger.
Yeah.
Or, a lot
Yeah.
younger.
And so that makes you Walt Disney royalty when you're Snow White. You are treated as royalty, aren't
Oh, very much. It's a wonderful company. I have to say that.
you? Yeah.
I don't care how much people go, the crowds. I have stories that would just go, yeah,
Yeah.
they're
that's,
good.
That's lovely. And you wrote children's books. Was that kind of an overlap with your Disney experience? Or
I always wanted to write children's books. And when I was looking for a change in career, I told my husband I wanted to write children's books. And I was going through a time where I had to change careers because I was going through breast cancer. And we had just found out I was stage 4. He said, we didn't even concentrate on the fact that I was stage 4. That was not even, we didn't even take that in. He goes, 24 hours. 24 hours, cry, get it out. In the morning, you're going to tell me what your new job is. And so I said, I want to be a children's writer. Within 2 weeks, I was on a plane flying to a children's conference to learn how to be a writer.
wow. So that decision was made.
It was made. And so I wrote my first children's book, but I dictated it. And the reason is because every time I would sit at the computer and try to write, the stretching would hurt.
Okay.
And I was told that it would take about 5 years to break into the industry, which is very standard because in children's, you really need to go traditional just to have that vetting process to get into the schools. It was 7 months. I pitched my story, and this man goes, I want that. I didn't know who he was. Come to find out, his name's Justin Chanda. He is the VP of Simon & Schuster.
Okay.
It ends up being this multi-book contract. I end up with one of the top agents. 7 months after. And we've come to find out the reason was they said I had found my voice so early in this writing career. And I thought back, how did I find my voice so early? Because voice is one of those things as a writer we're always searching for. How do you find your voice? And I thought, well, how did I find it? And it dawned on me. Ernest Hemingway said, if you want to be a writer, you have to sit down at the time, have to sit down and bleed. Well, that's what it was. My experiences in life, being Snow White, having breast cancer, everything I've been through is me. It makes me me. You tell me to write something, I'm going to write it one way. You tell someone else to write something, they'll write it a different way. Because our experiences, well, how do we get that out? It's that blood, the things we've been through. None of us grew up wanting to say, oh, I want to be a story typist. We grew up saying, I want to be a storyteller. That's all verbal. Well, how do you do that? You dictate. That's the verbal.
So dictation was there early on for you for physical reasons, but also you felt...
And I believe that's where my voice came from.
How you tell stories. Okay. And do you think that we should also say you've been battered by cancer over the years.
Yeah.
How many times did it?
3 times.
So 3 times you fought it off. So well done.
Thank you.
You're in remission now, which is...
I am in remission.
Fantastic. Snow White smile for remission. And do you think that being faced with having stage 4 cancer got you to the point where there's no dilly-dallying? Did it make you more decisive? Because it sounds like a very decisive period in your life.
I think I've always been kind of a tough cookie, but I would say breast cancer changed me. I look at more things and just go, really? That's what you're going to complain about? And the weight of the world? Really? I do reevaluate things a lot. So
when I get into my long rants and our car journeys about air conditioning in restaurants and stuff,
really?
you're the one saying, seriously, James?
Really?
Yeah. You're quite right, of course, to say that. Okay, so this is exciting. You had a traditional career with Simon & Schuster, and with
several of the publishers.
And we'll move on to the dictation properly, because that's what we're going to talk about. But I'm really interested in your story. And then at some point, led you to the point a year ago where you decided to move into romance. Are you still doing the children's books?
Well, I have books coming out till 2023 because children's books take a lot longer to come out because of fact checking and vetting, but also illustrations.
And you write under
a different name
for romance.
We don't mix those two.
And your books, just describe the books to us, the children's books.
Nonfiction. I write nonfiction for children.
Okay. On what sort of subjects?
You name it. I had a book come out about Robert Goddard, the father of U.S. rocketry.
Ah, cool.
That whole connection,
Danielle's husband is a rocket scientist.
He is a real rocket scientist.
If I could find an excuse to get him on the podcast, I would, but I don't think I'll get it past John and Mark.
Oh, yeah. He would have a ball. He's actually trying to write a book.
Oh, he is?
See, there you go.
You get in touch.
I will.
I'm going to come and visit him.
He will love it. He will have a ball.
Yeah. So those sort of history profiles, that sort of thing. Okay. Yeah. And where do you find the illustrators? They come from the company?
The Simon & Schuster, whatever, they find theirs. I have been in it long enough that I do have a little bit clout, that I get to have say in who my illustrators are.
Okay.
But it took some time and my agent negotiating that I get that say now.
Okay. So you've got some power now.
Yeah, right.
You're a player in the industry.
Yeah, let's make me think that, right.
Okay, and then you decided that you're going to try romance.
It was over drinks one night at a fan book signing. A couple authors who are wonderful established authors kind of talked me into trying it. We were talking about wild things that have happened to us that kind of just sounded like a romance story. And I shared something that had happened to me when I was 17. And they all go, you need to write that. So I did.
Intriguing.
And it was something I was like, oh my God, yeah.
And do you indie publish your
I
romance?
do. I indie publish.
Did you plan to do that from the beginning?
From the beginning, I wanted to be indie. I wanted more control. My husband is the one who takes all of Mark's classes. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I haven't taken any of them.
So as long as someone does.
Yeah, he handles all of it. He handles all my ads.
Well, he's a rocket scientist.
Hello, exactly. I'm not.
He understands Facebook algorithms.
That's right.
And do you notice, I mean, you say children's books they're difficult to indie publish. We do have some successful authors in that field, but
it is a much harder because of the fact, where are your children? They're in schools.
Yeah.
And to get into the schools, they go to the ALA, the Library Association, and they trust those publishers have done that vetting.
Okay, yeah.
So it is a much harder market.
Yeah. But also, when you move to indie, well, what are the things you've noticed? I mean, the pay's better, right?
Oh my gosh, much better. And that's coming from me, where I had some really great advances, but it's still much better. But also, I can say the F word.
Yes, which you don't when you're describing. Although Robert Goddard probably swore on the odd occasion. But.
Oh, I'm sure he did. But I get to say it in my books, and I get to say it at book signings. And I could never do that, of course, in the kids. And I naturally say that frequently.
So you're enjoying that. I didn't know Snow White. Shh. She would never.
No, she would never.
And when you're wearing that uniform,
we
costume,
never. Oh, hello, no, never.
Okay, so how many romance books you got out?
I have 6.
6. So you're prolific.
Dictation.
Which brings us on to
dictation.
So you're actually giving a talk on dictation at NINC in Florida, where we are now.
I am.
Okay, so you're proficient and expert, and now espousing this to other authors.
I am, because of the fact I've taught it for Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators for their conferences, and the reason is because if you have an organized outline, dictation, if you have an organized outline and you're typing, you can type 500 to 1,000 words in a 30-minute section because you need it out, organized. If you're dictating, you can do 3,000 words in that 30-minute section.
Yeah.
How much you can get done is so much more incredible. But also, if you've been writing for any amount of time, we complain so much. Carpal tunnel, our back's hurting, our shoulders are hurting. We're always complaining because something's hurting. Dictation, you don't have that. We have to think long term, our bodies. Dictation takes care of all that. And just the productivity of what dictation offers for us. And a lot of people I know, one of the big comments I had, in my class was, it's scary. How do you get into this? And my mom used to always, whenever I would face anything challenging, it was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
A little bit at a time, yeah.
How do you face dictating? A little bit at a time. There are tons of softwares. It's not just, we always hear Dragon, but that's not the only one. People don't realize your Mac computer and your PC computer both have dictation programs in them. Did you know that they're both ran by Dragon?
Oh, really?
That is who fuels that dictation software. If you have a Mac, because I have a Mac, it's the function key. You press it twice, your microphone comes up, and you can record. I'm not sure what it is on PC. Obviously, you can tell I have a Mac, but you can just search it. You'll find it. There are so many ways to try it until you know that you love it. But the other thing is that start with just recording your thoughts for stories. We always have so many ideas running through our heads, but we've got a lot of ideas and it's a lot to write down. Start with just saying those out. Start with talking out chapters. Use it in bite-sized pieces. I still, to this day, I only dictate my rough draft.
Oh, really?
Don't expect perfection.
Yeah.
I edit by computer. And so what I do is every morning I look at my chapter, I kind of study it for about 10 minutes, and then I'll dictate it. I'm done dictating the entire chapter in an hour. I have about 6,000 words. And then I go through and I edit it, tighten it, make it nice and polished, and I'm done
On a keyboard.
on a keyboard.
Yeah.
I'm done by noon with an entire chapter of 3,000 solid words
Wow.
in a half a day,
Okay, so
a book a month.
I had a little go at dictation, but classically dipped into it and then didn't really have time to follow it through. And I do know that you've got to persevere to make it work. But the one thing I found immediately, which I think a lot of people raise, is that you think at a different speed than the kind of natural rhythm of typing. So when you're typing, you obviously don't type as quickly, you think a bit slow, which gives a little bit more time for the thought to be formed and the sentence to be formed. And I worry that if I'm just speaking and there's no natural pauses or resistance to that I'm not going to have time to get the sentences properly formed, or the writing will suffer.
First of all, I'm going to give you the opposite of that. When you were for kids, what's the one thing everybody loves about kids' books? They're fun to read out loud.
Yep.
When you read a book, have you ever read a book and you go, that sentence just doesn't sound right? It's because they thought with their fingers, not with their mind. Stories are meant to be read aloud.
Yeah. My editor does say, read your chapter aloud before you submit it.
Even when we read aloud, we're still reading in our heads, even if we don't read it with our mouths. And so that's how they're supposed to be done. That's why we're called storytellers. And so when you are dictating, stop looking at the friggin' computer. Don't watch it type. And just talk. Don't think about it looking like a story. What's the hardest thing to write? When you're writing, what's your hardest thing to write?
I don't know, really.
Rough draft?
I'm enjoying rough draft. I'm enjoying my writing at the moment, so...
But I mean, is the rough draft not the hardest?
Yes.
Get that first draft out.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. That's what I use dictation for.
Okay.
Get that rough draft down.
So, but there is, nonetheless, I understand that, but there is obviously a period of adjustment. Did you take to it straight away, or did you...
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice, yeah.
But my thing is, don't go in it expecting miracles. And don't go in it expecting a finished product, because you don't get a finished product. It's not... there's very few authors I know that go all the way through their dictation, all the way through edit with it. To me, it's to increase my speed. It's to make me sit at the computer a lot less time. It's to get me out from behind that computer much more. That's what dictation's for.
So physically, you say don't look at the screen. How do you do that? Because you've got a microphone.
Turn your chair around.
Yeah.
Close your eyes. I wear Bose noise canceling headphones.
I'm wearing them.
Yeah, exactly. I wear those, so I don't have to hear. It cuts out how much I have to hear myself. I put those on and I just talk. Who cares if I have to think about what I'm saying next and I'm just sitting there quiet? What's it going to do? Record nothing? I mean, come on. No big deal.
And, sorry, I was going to say, you can, of course, record onto your iPhone whilst you're driving.
That's exactly.
Or go on a walk. And...
I will tell you, one of the best things I bought is probably one of the cheapest. It's a Sony dictaphone. $47. It's Amazon Prime. $47. It's Sony. Just type in Sony dictaphone. There's all different price ones. This one's like $47. And it has a little USB that just slides out of it, plugs right into your computer, and transcribes all of it. Wow. It holds hours and hours. And I just carry that in my purse all the time. I mean, I have it right over there. I always have it with me. And I'm always talking into it. I'm walking the dog. I'm sitting outside. I'm doing whatever. I'm at the grocery store. I'm unloading groceries. I'm talking into it. And so a story idea hits me. But I do my premise with it. Then I'll do my outline with it. Once I have my whole story plotted, I'll then do my outline with it. And then I do my rough draft with it.
Wow. And when you turn up to the grocery store, do some people say, there's the crazy lady?
Oh, yeah. But they say that anyway.
Yeah.
That in my hand or not, yeah, there goes that crazy lady.
Especially if you're doing a murder mystery.
Oh, my God. Okay, so I was researching how to sabotage police motorcycles.
Right.
And I'm asking the Harley mechanic, because our officers ride Harleys. And, of course, there are a couple Orlando police officers who are standing behind me. And I'm going, what's the best way to sabotage a police officer motorcycle? I'm going, oh, crap, I'm so in trouble.
We've all had those strange moments.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you're going to talk about it at NINC, and what are you going to say to people? Because you know what the common questions you're going to get are.
My class here is For those who want to try it, they're scared, where do you begin? And you begin with starting with the little things. Don't go invest all this money. I mean, that to me is the biggest mistake, because you go and invest $500 because the program, is $300. The mic they tell you to get is $150 because it's a Blue Yeti is what they recommend. And then you go, I have to get $500 worth of return on my investment. That is very scary. Start with talk to text. We have it on our phone. Start with that. There are several apps that you can get that are texting apps, talk to text apps. Start with that, but start with just those little pieces. Because the whole idea is don't expect perfection. Keep at it. Do a little bit. And when you start doing it, especially on your computer, if you're using the computer's recorder, it learns your voices. It learns how you speak. I mean, because all of y'all have accents. Of course, I never have an accent. Everybody else does.
You don't have an accent.
No, I don't.
We've got
at all. Y'all.
Outrageous.
I know y'all have the accent.
Y'all.
Yeah, I don't. So, anyway.
This is the Queen's English.
Exactly. Yeah. See, I don't, but yeah. But anyway, I always say, get your own book. Read your own book. Let it record you. Let it type to your reading. That way it knows what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it gets used to the kind of words you use, the way you say things.
So I know that Dragon software has that learning ability, but even the software built into my Mac
all
has
of them
that?
should.
Wow, as you say, it's made by Dragon.
Hello, that's right.
Yeah.
But then there's also Google Dictate. You can just open your Google Docs. They have a dictate.
Okay.
That's my least favorite. I find a lot more problems with that. Don't watch yourself. Don't watch your cursor. Don't watch it because it is. Then you realize all the mistakes it makes. Don't do that. Let it just go. Come back to it. And then don't worry about all the punctuation. Okay. Don't worry about saying period, open quote, close quote, comma. Don't worry about that. I worry about one thing and one thing only, new line.
Okay.
I'll start talking, and then every time it's kind of like a really new thought, I'll say new line. And when I'm done with a section, whether it be a scene, whether it be a chapter, or just a section, I'll stop. Then I go through and kind of while it's still fresh, that's when I kind of tighten it. Then I go back.
Okay. So you do that as you go along?
Yeah, about every hour or so I stop and I'll do it.
And what sort of word count are you up to now?
What do you mean?
In terms of your work rate, your word count
I
rate.
do 6,000 words in an hour talking, and that's very standard for anybody just starting. That's pretty much what we talk. If we know kind of the basis, and if you screw up, like let's say you're thinking something like, oh gosh, no, I got a better way, talk over it. Keep going, don't stop. Because when you go through and edit it and you've realized you've said 3 different ways of John picking an apple, you'll know to cut 2 of them.
Yeah.
Leave it.
And this is why you revise straight away.
Mm-hmm. This is why I revise straight away. The other thing is that I'm Greek. And so a lot of my characters are Greek. And Greek names are not exactly the easiest to transcribe. So don't worry about if you're using a unique name, or if you're a fantasy author or paranormal and you have created this fantasy world with unique names, don't worry about trying to have it spell those words. Instead, come up with a small word. Like for me, a lot of times I'll say hero. Just hero.
Okay.
Or heroine. And then all I do is I go search, Command F, find hero, and replace it then for the hero's name.
Constantine, whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so that's how I do it. It makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
So don't freak about all that stuff. Chill.
So by the time you've done your draft, you've gone through the book like that, so you've got your first draft effectively has been done with one sort of revision. And I guess the beauty of going in and tidying up the full stops and paragraphs is at the same point you're also doing a little bit of actual revision as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's a slightly more polished first draft than some people might end up with when they get to the end if they're typing.
Oh no, I mean by the time I'm done, it's not a revision anymore. I mean it's like solid.
Yeah. And you go at that point you go to editor?
Yeah, I mean by the time I'm done, it takes me a month to do a novel.
Right.
start to finish.
Plotted out?
Plotted everything. And I'm definitely a plotter.
You're a plotter, okay.
But what's so nice is if you do it this way, it's even good for the pantsers. Mm-hmm. Because you're talking this whole idea in your head and you're letting it plot for you in a way because you're just talking it out. And then what happens is you can print it off, this whole idea, and whether you knew it or not, all of a sudden you spoke this whole outline out into 5,000 words. And so you've kind of used your own pantsing way to plot the story. Then you can look at, okay, this is the first section. All right, I'm going to now talk it into 6,000 words or 4,000 words.
And clearly it is working with you. How many books did you say you've got in your romance?
6. My 7th one's going to come out.
Within 12 months?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're doing a book a month or every 2 months?
Well, and that's what's nice is I can do a book in a month. That's plotting everything. But when I'm done with a book, I take a few weeks off. Mm-hmm. I don't. I ride a Harley.
Oh, you do? You have a Harley?
I do have a Harley. That was my kind of like turned 50 and let's go wild. Got a tattoo, got a Harley.
Cool. We're waiting for John to get the tattoo and Harley.
Hey.
I can see him on that. And how's it going with the romance writing?
I'm new, so I don't know. What am I comparing it to?
You're selling some books?
I am. So I'm having fun.
What subgenre?
I'm contemporary, more of the romantic comedy.
Okay. With the old F-bomb.
With the F-bomb crazy.
Which I can tell you're quite excited about.
I kind of, like my series, it's about a group of girls who watched Sons of Anarchy and decided, they're kind of a Louboutin wearing, spa loving, who decided they were going to create an all women's MC.
Okay, cool.
But still be, funny women.
Yes,
so.
I'm sure. Okay, so you're talking at NINC. Do you have online resources for dictation? Is this something you're taking forward as a kind of passion of yours?
People can email me. I'll tell them whatever they need.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't ever.
You don't plan a non-fiction book on or anything like
that?
No. Okay.
No, I have never. Yeah, I'm not a very good teacher.
But you've stepped up to the plate here.
Thank you.
Talk about dictation.
Oh no, I can talk. I have no problem talking.
Well, that does go along with dictation.
Yeah, that's exactly. Hello.
Well, Snow White, cancer survivor, more importantly, which is fantastic. We're so excited that you're in remission from that, and you've got your second career, and who knows what genre you'll be writing next year. I'm going to come back and you'll be saying, here's my science fiction series, James.
Yeah, no.
It's about space Davidsons. Those big things in space.
That's it.
It's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us.
Thank you.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Okay, that is Danielle Norman. And now, Mark, you're a great dictator, aren't you?
I am a great dictator. Yes. I'm very keen to improve my dictation. It's been interesting. I've mentioned this before in the podcast. I was always very reluctant to do it because I felt I would be self-conscious. It would change the way that I write, so not physical anymore, but kind of more taking the hands out of the equation, taking the keyboard out of the equation, and going straight from my head to the microphone. And I was surprised, very pleasantly surprised, at how effective it was. And the new police procedural, which I've been noodling around with for 6 weeks or so, the early writing, the first 40,000 words or so, I dictated those, and I did it in about 4 or 5 days. So my production was just through the roof, way faster than I normally do. I kind of say 2,000 to 3,000 words a day when I'm typing is something I'd be happy with. But I was getting 2,000 to 3,000 words an hour, and not terrible either. The quality wasn't terrible too. So I was very impressed. And as I get older, I get more aches and pains. Thankfully, my hands haven't actually been affected. I find my fingers. I drop things quite a lot now. Because my hands can get quite stiff. But as we get older, I think it will be very helpful to have an alternative way to do the bulk of the writing. And if speaking works, it's got to be worth a try.
Yeah. I know you use dictation quite a lot for emails, because occasionally I'll see something that you've said has been very, very phonetically or quite comedically translated. And I guess that is part of the process of dictating, is that it's a first draft of a first draft, if you like. You even have to tidy it up before it becomes a first draft?
You do, yeah. I mean, it's great for emails. I get dozens of emails, more than that sometimes, and it is a very good way to. I like to reply to as much as I can, and it's a very good way to do that. And it actually takes me back, weirdly enough, to when I started working professionally out of law school, going to law. I had a secretary. So even as like a 21-year-old trainee lawyer, I had a secretary, and they gave me a dictation machine, which was a little tape. Go into the machine, and you click it on. You'd then dictate your letters or your memos, whatever it was, and I'd hand the tape to my secretary, and she would then type it out. Now, eventually, I stopped doing that because it was faster for me to write those myself. And older lawyers would still do that. I'm sure they do still do it. But as Dragon gets more effective, I think there's a Dragon for lawyers now. There's certainly one for doctors. It just, it takes that element of not having to actually do the typing yourself because you might not be very fast, and to give it to someone else who is. And instead of a secretary who can do 60 or 75 words per minute, you go to an algorithm that can process it almost as fast as you speak it. So this is progress, modern world. Ain't it grand?
Yes, it's that old joke. Do you use a dictaphone?
Yeah, that's the family podcast, Mr. Blatch. We won't mention. My apologies to listeners around the world who are now offended by.
Well, I haven't had the punchline, so they can't be offended. Yes, I did notice that one you sent me in an email. I think you had said you let us know how many new readers, and your dictation said you let a snow. How many new?
No, so, I normally check everything before I go out, but sometimes if I'm sending it to you, I don't give a So
yes, exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a family podcast. But the point is, if you read that out, you let us know how many new. It works phonetically, but
it's anyway. Pretty good. Yeah, and the accuracy is fairly high. But it's you will occasionally. It's not good with words it doesn't know. For example, so my character Atticus. Now I had a character called Malander in the new book, and it got that wrong over and over again. And you can train it to get it right, and eventually it will pick it up. But even if you have to go back and make those kinds of amendments, it's still going to be light years faster than doing everything the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, look, I've run out of colours for my background, so that's the end of our batching session for Christmas and New Year for the Self-Publishing Show. You're back from Bali at this time in the future, and next week will be contemporaneous again. And at some point, we have quite a few podcasts lined up, in fact, well into the future at the moment. We've got a lot of interviews to go. We've got a really good one on newsletters coming up, but I think we are going to have that look forward to 2019 and sit down with you and try and predict, read the runes, if you like, of which way things are going. And they have changed, they shaped quite a lot in the last year or so there's a lot to talk about with that. Right, you can support the podcast if you'd like to at patreon.com/self-publishing show. You can find all the show notes and everything else. You'll see the URLs at the end of this podcast. And of course, join our Facebook group, a thriving community of indie authors who want to help each other to success. And that's it for this episode on dictation with Mark the Dictator and James the Benign democratically elected leader. That's it. By the way, it's quite interesting now because we have no idea whether we've got a country left at this point. This is going out in January because in such a state of flux in the United Kingdom at the time we're recording this. So we might be living in America by then. Who knows?
Could be. We'll go to Bali. That's actually why I'm going to
just stay in Bali. Yeah, just stay in Bali. Good. Okay, thank you very much indeed. We will be back next Friday for another edition of the Self-Publishing Show. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishing show. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.